Exposed, the sinister secrets of France's most cursed ghost town. A spine-chilling journey awaits. Laura's heart raced as she jolted awake to the eerie wind howling outside, a ghostly wail creeping through the darkness of her bedroom in Maplewood. Her phone pinged like a gunshot, slicing through the silence. It was a message from Claire, an old childhood friend. "They're coming for us. Remember the ghost town?" Confused yet intrigued, she felt cold fingers of dread wrapping around her throat. In a flash, memories cascaded into her mind: the abandoned ghost town in France, the whispered folklore, and tragedy woven through its history. She stumbled out of bed, flicking on the lights. Shadows danced along the walls, distorting the very fabric of her reality. The sense of safety she fought to build was slipping away. Outside, the wind howled with a sorrowful echo, and her breath turned shallow as she recalled their teenage explorations through the decaying structures. The thrill had always had an undercurrent of danger, but now it felt like a forewarning. After putting the kids to bed, Laura settled into the glow of her laptop, researching the ghost town's dark past. Relics of horror emerged before her eyes: stories of disappearances, whispers of a malevolent force that lingers even now. Chilled, she shot a glance at the hallway, eyes narrowing at the flickering lights that cast an unsettling ambience. Cold drafts swirled through the house, sending a shiver racing down her spine. "Okay, just old wiring or maybe a storm outside," she muttered to herself, trying to dispel the fear tightening her chest. But she could hear it: the soft laughter of Ethan and Mia echoing from their room, a sound that used to warm her heart but now curled her toes in terror. It was as if they were conversing with someone she couldn't see, their giggles vibrating with something malicious. The way they mimicked whispers chilled her to the bone. "Stop it, you two," she called nervously, trying to quell the creeping panic. There was no response, just more laughter, bubbling up like a pool of darkness. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every creak in the house was an alarm, every shadow a specter. The Maplewood police dismissed her fears as stress, a normal reaction after leaving an abusive relationship. But they didn't see her neighbors. Not Mark, who always lingered, his friendliness too eager, too invasive. He was everywhere and nowhere, offering help as though he relished in her vulnerability. One evening, unable to shake the feeling of being watched, Laura followed the echoing giggles outside. Heart pounding, she stepped into the garden, and her breath caught. Shadows morphed into figures just beyond the trees, shapes from her past, figures that whispered secrets laced with malice. She turned to run, fingers trembling as they grasped the doorframe. Could she protect Ethan and Mia from whatever was closing in, about to breach their fragile, hard-won sanctuary? As the world outside the door darkened, a shriek reverberated through her. The wind screamed like a wounded animal, and in the attic, hidden under old boxes, her fingers brushed against a photograph. Claire and Mark stood at the ghost town, their faces twisted in manic joy. A sickening realization washed over her, a deep-rooted fear folding in her stomach. She was trapped. Just as she prepared to confront Mark, a shattering crash echoed through the house. Her heart lurched. Was this the moment they claimed her? Her children? The laughter intensified. Could they escape the clutches of a fate already sealed? The noise echoed like thunder through the empty hallways. Laura squeezed her eyes shut, taking a moment to breathe. The laughter from the kids had stopped, replaced with an abrupt stillness that thickened the air. Panic gripped her throat, and she fought the urge to flee. Where would she go? For a fleeting moment, she felt a flicker of hope, a whisper of strength. The children needed her. With trembling hands, she reached for the attic door. Each creak of the stairs beneath her sent a wave of dread crashing over her. She could almost hear the whispers of the figures from the garden swirling around her, warning her not to ascend into the shadows. But she had to know. Whatever secret lay hidden, she had to unveil it before it swallowed her whole. In the dim light of the attic, dust motes danced like lost souls. Old boxes jutted out, silhouettes of forgotten memories. Her heart raced as she scanned the room, searching for anything out of place, anything that could explain the terror that had seeped into her life. Her breath quickened as the corner of her eye flickered with movement. "Mom?" It was a whisper, strangled and wrong. Laura whipped around, but no one was there. "Ethan? Mia?" she called, feeling the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. The silence returned, wrapping her in its cold grip. Then, a rustling from the far corner caught her attention. The tall stack of boxes seemed to be shifting, breathing. Not daring to approach it directly, she edged closer, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. As she reached the top of the pile, she paused, staring at her own childhood doll hidden beneath the layers of dust, its glassy eyes glimmering with a malevolence that recalled her darkest fears. Suddenly, the floorboards creaked behind her. Laura spun around just in time to catch the glimpse of a shadow slipping behind the doorframe. "Mark?" she called, voice strained. But instead of Mark's familiar face, she was met with chilling silence, then laughter, a chilling, hellish sound echoing through the attic space. It warped and twisted like a grotesque melody, filling her with dread. She felt the confined space closing in, the air thickening until it was suffocating. "Laura," it called, the voice layered with echoes. It was hauntingly familiar yet utterly wrong. Her stomach dropped. She stepped back, eyes wide, suddenly aware that the laughter had returned this time, right behind her. It was the kids. "Mom!" They cried out in unison, but their voices took on an eerie sing-song quality, a parody that sent shivers down her spine. She turned, her heart racing. The children stood at the attic entrance, their eyes dark and hollow like shadows. "We're just playing," they said, but it wasn't their voices. The sound clawed at her sanity, wrenching her. "Get away from them!" she screamed, a protective instinct surging through her. The figures advanced closer, and suddenly, behind them, there was Mark, his smile too wide, too sharp. "You've disturbed them, Laura," he said, his voice dripping with malicious glee. With a surge of terror, she lunged for the children, but the air spun, twisting around her as her vision blurred. Shadows closed in, the laughter crescendoing into a cacophony that dulled her senses. "Leave them alone!" she shrieked, her voice rising against the storm of voices. Just as she felt herself sinking into a darkness pool, another crash ricocheted through the attic, shaking the very foundations of her reality. The walls trembled and the shadows recoiled momentarily like retreating waves, but the laughter only grew louder, creating an unholy symphony. Laura gasped, fighting to pull herself back into awareness, but it was already too late. A wave of darkness enveloped her, dragging her under. When the world came back into focus, she was alone in the attic, the air still, the overwhelming laughter vanished. All that remained were the whispering shadows lurking just beyond the door. What just happened? She thought, frantically searching for any sign of her children. Trembling, she stepped back, mind racing. Where could they be? Before she could formulate a plan, the lights flickered above her. The attic door creaked ominously, gently swinging open. A flicker of childlike laughter echoed, beckoning her into the unknown depths of the house. Was it the truth? Or just another trap? As she hesitated, dread clawed at her, urging her to act. But would stepping through that door save them, or seal their fate? Tomorrow, the truth awaited, and it would not be gentle. Laura stood at the threshold, the dim corridor stretching into the inviting darkness. The flicker of the overhead light felt like it was teasing her, illuminating just enough to highlight the unsettling shadows. The laughter echoed again, this time softer, more delicate, as if the children were drawing her in like a moth to a flame. "Ethan! Mia!" she called again, her voice shaky, cracking with urgency. She couldn't wait. She had to move, had to know if they were safe. But her legs felt heavy, a gravitational force anchoring her to the spot. As she cleared her throat, a creeping chill wound around her spine. "I'm coming," she shouted, forcing her feet to obey. With each step, the air thickened, crackling slightly as if charged with static electricity. At the end of the hallway, the walls seemed to elongate and shrink, closing in on her. It was claustrophobic, the faint sound of her heart pounding loud in her ears. The laughter rose again, shrill and jarring. Laura gritted her teeth, pressing forward despite the unease gnawing at her gut. She crossed the threshold into the dimly lit room, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The children were there, but they weren't alone. Shadows danced around them, writhing in a sickening frenzy that made her stomach churn. An unnatural force gripped the room, tightening like a vice. "Mom!" They shrieked, but their faces flickered, shifting between her sweet children and something much darker, evil incarnate hiding beneath their skin. Her breath caught in her throat, she rushed forward. "Get away from them!" she shouted, but it was as if a thick glass wall separated her from the horrifying scene. Their laughter morphed into a cackling symphony, each note a shard of ice penetrating her soul. "Help us!" one child cried, the voice ripped straight from her nightmares. Laura felt tears spring to her eyes. She banged on the invisible wall, desperation washing over her. Suddenly, the shadows lunged at her from every corner, swirling into doubt and despair. "Join us," Laura whispered, the voice from the attic again, now amplified. "We're waiting." The wall seemed to pulse, vibrating with hidden energy. In that instant of paralysis, a flicker of an image burned into her mind, a memory of the doll from the attic, its glassy eyes holding secrets that unlocked something deep within her. She gasped, the memory crashing like a wave over her. "You have to remember," she whispered to herself, trying to drown out the cacophony. The children wailed, shadows gripping them tighter. Then, it happened, the walls quaked, and the lights flickered violently as shadows erupted like a swarm of locusts, each one screeching in torment as they bolted toward her. Laura stumbled backward, feeling pressure build around her. There was no escaping this. "Stop! Leave them alone!" A furious roar escaped her lips, surprising even herself. But as soon as the words left her, a deafening silence descended upon the chaos. Everything froze. Her heart pounded in her ears, and for a terrifying moment, she could sense the darkness lurking at the edges of her vision, watching, waiting. Then, with one swift motion, the shadows collapsed into a singular mass, rushing at her like a tidal wave. Laura turned to run, but the very air had thickened, wrapping around her throat, squeezing. "Laura! Wait!" The children's voices now cobbled together, merging into a haunting chorus. Screams reverberated, spiraling through her like a dagger. She felt their presence behind her, so close it was maddening, yet still trapped. When she was about to lose all hope, a cold hand grasped her wrist. She turned abruptly, expecting terror, yet found only a whisper of familiar warmth. It was Ethan's face, pale and trembling, yet alive. "Mom! They're coming!" he cried, his voice tinged with panic. "Where's Mia?" Laura demanded, shaking. She's in the basement." The shadows crept closer, stretching out like claws, and panic surged again. This wasn't just her fight, they were coming for her children. "Stay close," she instructed, and as she pulled Ethan into a protective embrace, a choking darkness writhed around them, wrapping tighter against their legs. As she fled through the door with Ethan in tow, she knew one thing for certain: if she wanted to save Mia, she had to confront the terrible unknown lurking in the bowels of the house. They sprinted down the corridor, shadows snapping at their heels. In the distance, she could already hear the dreadful whispers promising the truth but sowing doubt, teasing them. Each step shook the foundation of her sanity. "Mom, what's happening?" Ethan asked, eyes wide with fear. "I'll explain later. Just keep running." The descent into the basement loomed ahead like a gaping maw, a thirsting abyss promising more terror. Yet within it lay the final answer to their nightmare, a truth hidden deep within the heart of darkness, waiting to be unearthed. But as they reached the first step down, the laughter surged back, a haunting echo creeping into her mind. When the truth is revealed, it taunted. Laura paused, heart racing, breath trembling. She narrowed her eyes, anger bubbling beneath despair. "What are you hiding?" The darkness answered, and she knew in her bones it would not stop until it had consumed them all. And with mere seconds to spare, they stepped forward into Hell's mouth. What would they find waiting in the darkness? Would the secrets truly set them free or ensnare them forever? The basement door creaked as they pushed through, plunging them into a snake-like tunnel of shadow. A musty odor hit Laura hard, the scent clinging to her like decay. Ethan tugged at her sleeve, eyes round with fright, but she had no time to waste. They had to keep moving. The stairs beneath their feet seemed uneven, each step a gamble. The laughter morphed into chilling whispers again, soft and sweet, as if trying to comfort them. "Mom, they want to play just for a little while," Ethan murmured, clutching her hand tightly. "Keep your voice down," Laura hissed, adrenaline spiking through her. Those whispers weren't innocent, they were laced with malice, snaking through the air like serpents. As they descended further, the walls of the basement began to pulse, as if breathing. It felt like the house itself was alive, and with every footfall, it grew more agitated. The flicker of a distant bulb hummed erratically, casting eerie shadows that twisted like tortured souls. "Where's Mia?" Laura asked again, panic creeping into her voice. "She's in the back. I saw her." Ethan's voice trembled with urgency, yet there was a strange pull in his tone, like a siren's call beckoning her to an unknown fate. Rounding a corner, they entered a wider space, the basement's depths. The glow from the flickering light revealed remnants of a forgotten past, crumpled newspapers, shattered toys, and an old rocking chair creaked slightly, as if a ghost were present. Laura's heart sank. This was a shrine to despair, and in the corner, a sight that froze her. Mia sat on the damp floor, her back turned towards them, hunched over something. The shadows curled around her like a cloak, the whispers crescendoing into a nightmarish cacophony. "Mia!" Laura shouted, breaking the spell. She dashed forward, pulling Ethan along. But Ethan hesitated, eyes glazing over, transfixed. "Ethan, we must go," she urged, but he glared blankly at her, caught in the grip of the darkness. "Mia wants us to stay," he whispered, his small hand slipping from her grasp. The moment shattered like glass, fury roared inside Laura, fighting against the chains of despair wrapping around them. "Mia! Get up! We're here!" she yelled desperately, heart pounding as she ripped Ethan back to her. The air grew colder, each breath like ice stabbing her lungs. The shadows danced excitedly at the mere mention of her daughter's name, pulling and stretching, testing her resolve. As she rushed toward the still figure, the whispers transformed again, weaving through the air. "She's ours now," it sang, the voice slithering with delight. Laura's heart raced. "No! You're not taking her!" She lunged, ready to pry Mia from the grasp of the lurking terror. "Mia!" she screamed, a surge of maternal instinct overwhelming her fear. Suddenly, Mia turned slowly, a vacant grin stretching across her face. Eyes, once bright and cheerful, now glimmered with shadows, revealing nothing but darkness behind them. The resemblance was there, but it was marred by an otherworldly chill. "Mommy, they told me the truth," Mia murmured in a voice that echoed, layered with whispers, as if the entire basement spoke through her. "What truth?" Laura gasped, recoiling from the twisted form of her daughter. "They said we can play forever." The smile widened, stretching beyond what was natural. Laura's gut twisted in horror. "No! You don't want this, sweetheart. Fight it." Mia's head tilted, disconcertingly, as chilling laughter erupted from the shadows, a ghastly mix of her daughter's voice and echoing madness. "Play with us, Mommy. Laura staggered backward, the walls closing in. No escape. No escape. The shadows pulsed with malevolence, raking toward them like clawed hands, the laughter echoing around her like a death knell. Ethan. We need to go. Now. But Ethan stood paralyzed, drawn to the creeping abyss, whispering, "Mom, there's so much fun." Fighting involuntary tears, Laura clutched his hand. "You have to come back to me. We can't stay." As the shadows surged forth, a piercing beg for sanity flickered in her eyes. Something was buried deep within the darkness, a truth that could destroy or save them all. "Reveal yourself," she bellowed, voice quaking with defiance. And for a terrible moment, silence blanketed the basement, the air rippling with tension. "Then face the horror and find your resolve." The walls trembled, an ominous vibration that beckoned forth something primal. Would she uncover the truth before the darkness enveloped them entirely? Or would it consume everything she had left? The shadows paused, thick and still, as if the basement itself took a breath. Laura's heart drummed in her chest, and with each thud, the fear constricted her throat tighter. The walls leaned closer, creeping inward, the whispers morphing into something more menacing, a relentless tide rising with hunger. "Mia!" she pleaded again, forcing the word from her trembling lips. This time, she stepped closer, a tender instinct simmering beneath the surface of her terror. Whatever had consumed their daughter, Laura refused to let it take her completely. But Mia remained unblinking, her once celestial gaze now a maw of hollow night, just as the whispers had promised. The chilling laughter rose once more from the gaping shadows, crawling like insects over her skin. It was a babbling choir of voices, twisted and gleeful. "Join us, Mommy, forever forever," it echoed, bouncing off the walls, a promise laced with the taste of betrayal. "Ethan, listen to me." She pulled at him, tugging desperately with trembling fingers. "We need to go. We can't stay here." But he didn't move. His eyes, usually so full of innocence, now looked deep into a chasm of seduction almost enchanting. "Mom, they play games. Fun games." He leaned toward the shadows, a hypnotic pull in his voice. "Mia. Please." Laura's hand shot out, desperate for any glimmer of recognition. "Remember our games? We played fairy tales. We had so much fun outside, not here." For a fleeting second, her words broke through the haze, and Mia's face twitched just the hint of a frown. But the shadows pulsed with impatience, hungry claws extending as if to smother her attempts. In an instant, the lights flickered and dimmed even further. "Mommy, you have to play," Mia whispered, voice straining through a veil of malice. "They're waiting for what?" Laura's voice pierced through her rising fear, yet doubt began to gnaw at her confidence. What awaited them in this sinister place? The walls vibrated ominously, pulsing to an unseen heartbeat as shadows surged like a tidal wave, breaking any hope of retreat. "Playtime," Mia whispered, her lips curling into that unnatural grin again. "We all need to play." The very air grew thick with the taste of despair, wrapping around Laura, squeezing like a vice. Images spiraled in her mind, glimpses of families lost to the depths of this cursed place, souls trapped in eternal games of torment. A scream clawed its way upward, but she swallowed it down. "Not here, not now." "Ethan," she managed, grounding herself with the sound of his name. "We have to find a way out. I promise you, we'll keep playing, but not here." But Ethan shook his head, tears glistening like dew on his cheeks. They said if you leave, you can't come back." A scream threatened the surface then, a raw instinct for survival clawing at her chest. "Mia. You're stronger than this. You have to fight. Don't let them take you." And in that moment, something inside Mia flickered. The light in her eyes struggled against the pitch of darkness consuming her, the grin faltered. "Mommy, I'm scared," she murmured, and for a heartbeat, Laura felt the tug of hope, but then it shattered, the shadows lurching, disallowing any flicker of affection. "No! Stay with us!" The whispers shrieked, the darkness thrumming hungrily, rushing to reclaim its prize. Mia collapsed back into the abyss, the transformation swift, a puppet once more in the grip of the malevolence. Laura fell back, panic enveloping her. If she reached for the flicker of hope, she would lose her children to the darkness completely. Yet the darkness didn't wait, it lunged, pouring like ink around her, surrounding her, suffocating her sanity. "Face your horror," the whispers grew deafening, drowning her thoughts. Would the truth be enough to shatter their chains? Or was it too late to save them both? "Mommy, play," the shadows sneered, and in that moment of desperation, she knew she had one last chance, the final stand against the encroaching darkness. Laura took a breath, heart pounding, and spoke the very words she feared the most: "I want to let you take them." The air crackled around her like a charged storm, the basement trembling with her defiance. What awaited her as she plunged deeper into the heart of the darkness? Could she shield her children, or was the darkness more than she could withstand? The answer loomed, ready to strike. The basement shuddered, the very walls vibrating with the weight of her defiance. Laura felt the shadows recoil, if only for a moment, as if surprised by her refusal. A flicker of that nagging hope sparked in her chest, igniting a fire she thought long extinguished. But the whispers returned, malicious and hungry, a cacophony of voices that layered themselves over each other, drowning out her thoughts. "You should have played, now you'll pay." Ethan shrank back against the wall, fear etched across his face as the shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, dancing menacingly around Mia. She stood rigid, eyes glazed over, but now there was a hint of something darker reflected in her lost gaze. The shadows seemed almost alive, writhing like serpents hungry for flesh. "Mia!" Laura yelled, fighting against the pull of despair. "Listen to me. You have to fight. Remember the bedtime stories? The heroes we dreamed of?" But her words seemed to falter, swallowed by the growing storm. Mia remained still, yet Laura could see a flickering battle waging beneath the surface. "Mommy, they want me." Her voice came out, trembling, a tightrope spooled with pain and confusion. "They want all of us." Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. "This is a game we can't win." The shadows hissed in unison, the breath of the basement plunging in temperature. The whispers sharpened into piercing shrieks that rattled through Laura's bones. "No, no, and no." She lunged forward, heart thrumming wildly as if beating out a desperate rhythm. The stains of terror coated her mind, telling her that moving was a terrible mistake. Still, she couldn't stand still. She reached for Mia's outstretched hand, but just as her fingers grazed the cold skin, the shadows lurched forward, hurling her back, knocking the breath from her lungs. "Mom!" Ethan cried, but it was lost in the furious clamor of the whispering shadows. "You're too late." A wall of darkness crashed over her, the weight of despair pressing down. She gasped, struggling to breathe, overpowering the suffocating fear clenching around her throat. "Stay with us, Mommy. Play forever." The voice was laced with glee, bouncing off the damp walls and enveloping her in sinister laughter. "Enough!" Laura screamed, pushing through the terror, bracing herself against the tide. "I'm not afraid of you." She dug her feet in, forcing herself to stand firm against the typhoon of darkness threatening to drag her under, dragging her family along with her. She fought the dread rising from her gut, each pulse fueled by the memories of laughter long past. Suddenly, Mia jolted, her eyes widening as if she'd broken free from the thrall. "Mom, I see you." The air crackled again, and in that split second, the shadows faltered, retreating just slightly. But the relief was ephemeral. The darkness coiled tighter, winding itself around Laura's legs, tugging her down. "You cannot win. You cannot leave." The mocking laughter swelled, drowning in a thundering chorus, consuming her hope. "Mia! Can you hear me?" Laura shouted desperately, but a wave of despair rolled over her, thick as smoke. "Mia! was all she could manage as the shadows yanked her harder toward oblivion. Play with us, the twisted chorus cooed, drawing her fate closer. What would it take to break this game of horrors? Did they have the strength to fight back, or was surrender the only path left? As Laura felt the last tendrils of light fade, one thought remained burning in her mind: could she save her children from the puppeteer of nightmares before it was too late? The shadows lunged, swallowing Laura in a darkness thick enough to choke. She clawed at the air, desperate for some thread of light, but the malevolent laughter wrapped around her like chains. Just when she thought the abyss would claim her, she felt a flicker, a gentle grip on her hand, warm against the icy tendrils. "Mama, please." It was Ethan's voice, trembling through the veil of darkness. A surge of resolve cut through Laura, igniting a fire in her heart, and she yanked back against the thrumming void. "Mia! You can fight this!" she shouted, holding onto Ethan's hand as if he were a lifeline. "You're stronger than them." The boys' faces, once full of life, now looked gaunt, etched with shadows like a twisted painting. But the pleading in Ethan's eyes sparked a breath of courage that threatened to push the darkness back. "Help us!" Ethan shouted again, the words breaking through tears. "Mommy! Help us!" In that moment, Laura felt a stirring within Mia, a flicker that grew as if ignited by every word. Mia's eyes, once an echoing void, slowly brightened. Laura leaned closer, her heart pounding, urging her daughter through the suffocating grip of despair. "Mia, remember our games? Remember the heroes? You are my hero." Mia's frame quivered, resistance tracing a line across her small face. "Mom, it hurts," she managed, the shadows still whispering gratingly in her ear. "Fight back. Feel the love. We're here, together." Laura exclaimed, pushing through the chaos, the darkness retreating slightly at her desperate declaration. With a deep breath, Mia began to shake, her hands tightening into fists. "Get away!" she screamed, the sound fierce and filled with a power that surprised even Laura. The shadows hissed in fury, recoiling as if struck. For a moment, the basement trembled, the whispers drowning under the sudden wave of Mia's defiance. "Do it, baby. Let them know you're not afraid." Laura felt the grip of hope tightening around her heart. Shadows quivered, angry and restless, warning her that this was just a brief pause. Suddenly, with a jolt, the darkness surged once more, swirling like a tornado in the small room. It lashed out, striking, a whipping force that almost knocked Laura and Ethan to their knees. Barely standing, she locked her eyes on Mia, focusing all her energy on her daughter, but chaos erupted as the walls of the basement seemed to shriek, a deafening roar echoing through the space. The shadows slithered violently, growing more aggressive, circling them like predators ready to pounce. "Why won't you play?" The chorus sang again, crueler this time, wrapping laughter around them, promising doom. "Mom!" Ethan shouted, clutching her tighter, fingernails digging into her skin. "Don't let them have you." Laura pulled him close, the warmth of his body contrasting against the chilling air. "We have to stay together. Don't let go, no matter what." The swirling darkness began to funnel toward Mia, who stood at the eye of the chaos, a storm of volatility. With a raw, primal scream, she stepped forward, eyes blazing with determination. "Get out!" It tore from her throat, a shockwave that sent ripples through the shadows. But the darkness recoiled only for a moment, gathering itself, ready to strike back. The whispering grew into a deafening din. "You're trapped forever." Panic surged through Laura as she glanced at Ethan, his face twisted in fear. "What do we do?" he gasped, terror creeping into his voice. "We have to break it. Find something inside to fight back." Laura felt a deep instinct rising, guiding her. "Be brave, both of you. No matter how deep the darkness goes." Mia nodded, the flicker of spirit fighting against the pulling gloom, but uncertainty lingered. The shadows weren't done yet. As a wave of darkness surged toward them once more, Laura glanced to her side and spotted a mirror, cracked and forgotten in the shadows. Something flashed inside, a reflection of hope. "Look!" she cried. "The mirror!" Suddenly, a blinding light emanated from it, illuminating the basement in a fierce glow that cut through the darkness with scorching rays. "Do you see it? That's our chance." But could they withstand the darkness long enough to grasp the light? With hope flickering, Laura prepared to sprint toward that moment of potential escape, clenching Ethan and Mia's hands tighter as the shadows shrieked around them, preparing for a final onslaught. What would emerge victorious, the light of love or the consuming dark? The moment Laura shouted toward the mirror, a wave of energy surged, wrapping around them like a cocoon of warmth. The light flickered, fighting against the gnarly shadows, but the darkness lunged forward, splintering the moment of hope into shards of despair. "Mia! Ethan!" Laura's scream was torn from her throat as if the shadows themselves were snatching it away. Gritting her teeth, she yanked them both closer, the three of them forming a circle against the suffocating pull of despair. She felt the chill creeping into their skin, fingers trembling, hearts racing. "Don't let go," she urged, her breath quickening as she felt the shadows tightening like a noose. This was more than a game. This was existence itself. "It won't let us go," Ethan cried, his voice cracking like a shattered porcelain doll. The shadows wailed, echoing his fear, curling around them like serpents. I can't breathe." "Focus!" Laura shouted, desperately searching for any sign of resistance in Mia's face. "Think about the light, the love we have. Remember the stories we would read together? The ones where the heroes always found a way." Mia's face contorted in pain as the shadows wrapped tighter, whispering cruel secrets that slipped into her mind like poison. "But what if we lose? We won't." Laura exclaimed, fighting against the rising tide of hopelessness threatening to sweep them away. "You are stronger than this. Remember the heroes." In that moment, something shifted. The shadows paused, almost as if surprised by the strength of their united stand. Laura felt the slightest tremor of power rising from Mia, a small flame stubbornly sustaining itself within her daughter's core. "Get out!" Mia's voice pierced through, fueled by reality's sharpened edge. She stepped forward defiantly, reaching toward the mirror, light reflecting off its cracked surface. The shadows screeched, recoiling as if struck by an unseen fist. "Keep going," Laura encouraged, her heart soaring for an instant. "Grab the light, Mia. You can do it." But the darkness gathered, rage turning the air electric. Whispers intensified, a vicious choir hell-bent on spreading fear. "You will die, you will fade, this light will be extinguished." Laura's heart raced. She felt Ethan's grip falter, fear wrapping around him tighter than ever. "Mom," he whimpered, "I don't want to die, neither do I," Laura replied fiercely. "But we will fight together. We cannot let them take us." Then the basement wall shook violently, a loud crack splitting the air as something dark coiled and struck. It felt as if all the warmth was sucked away in an instant. The mirror pulsed, twisted reflections shining distorted images that turned the very real faces of her children into nightmarish figures. "Mia, remember when we defeated that monster in the game?" Laura shouted, throwing everything she had into her voice. "Use that strength." Mia's eyes narrowed, her tiny fists clenching in determination over the shadows lashing around her. For a fleeting moment, Laura saw a glimpse of the girl she knew, ready to battle. "Mommy!" Mia cried, the sound both desperate and powerful. "I'm scared." "Then be scared, but do it anyway, sweetheart. Use that fear. Power it with love. Grab the light." Laura felt a vibration in the air as she reached for the mirror, the polished glass beginning to respond to their desperation. Then, without warning, the shadows lunged forward with a shriek that filled the basement, promising torment. "Mom!" Ethan's scream cut through the chaos, grounding Laura even as darkness erupted. The mirror exploded in a blinding light, shards spraying everywhere. But would the light be enough to hold back the darkness, or would it consume them in its wake? In that moment, the ground trembled. The basement walls pulsed with a sinister heartbeat, and a terrible, hissing voice rang out, "You are a part of us now." As Laura shielded her children, the truth hit her like icy water: you cannot escape the darkness that lives in you. A sudden sense of betrayal coursed through her heart. What had they unleashed? The shadows surged forth, and as the light flickered, its final glow threatened to extinguish completely. Would their fight finally end in despair? The choice lay ahead, and as the darkness surged, Laura felt herself slipping into the familiar cold embrace. She steadied her breath, fighting against the overwhelming pull. But amidst the chaos, one thought echoed louder than the rest, spurring her on: everything they loved depended on this moment. And then came the unthinkable burst of realization. A new primal cry echoed from the shadows, shattering the silence in an unexpected twist. Prepare to play for eternity. What would be the choice they had to make? Would they succumb to the dark or embrace the light? The light from the shattered mirror engulfed them, blinding and overwhelming. Laura squeezed her children tight as tendrils of shadow wriggled through the air, seeking to drag them back into the abyss they had just fought so hard to escape. The echoes of laughter morphed into cries, twisted and cacophonous, battering her senses. "Hold on to me!" she shouted, trying to anchor herself, to keep her children tethered to reality. They were still there, still together. The shimmering shards of the mirror danced around them, sparkling with hope. But would it be enough? "Mom!" Ethan choked, his small frame vibrating with terror. "What's happening?" It's fighting back. We've got to channel our love. Listen to me. Think of the good times." The fun. Laura's voice was caught in her throat as the shadows lunged again, bearing sharp, glistening fangs, hungry and ever watchful. The basement shook, the cracked walls seemed to breathe as they constricted closer around them. With each tremor, Laura felt the shadows siphoning away the warmth in the air, their cold breath creeping over her skin like ice. "Mia!" she screamed, desperate to keep her daughter focused. "What do you see?" I see us as superheroes, Mom. Together." Mia replied, the fear radiating from her voice threading through a filament of strength. Laura locked her eyes onto her daughter, summoning every piece of conviction she had. "Then be a hero, Mia. Use your power." Mia stood firm, summoning the past to aid their current struggle. The darkness faltered for just a moment, confused by the sudden resilience coursing through the air. It seemed to recoil, as though the memories of joy, bursts of laughter during chaotic game nights, warm hugs before bedtime were fire that scorched, but the relief was short-lived. A guttural growl reverberated through the shadows as they swirled tighter, unleashing fury over the trio. "You think your light can hold us? You are small. You are nothing." The words were a whip that cut through Laura's racing heart. "No. We exist," she shrieked, the sound tearing up from her gut, a primal scream fueled by motherhood. "We will stand our ground. This time, you win." In that instant, a beam of light shot out from the shards that lay scattered on the floor, piercing through the dark. It illuminated the twisted figures now swirling within the shadows, faces frozen in agony, unable to escape the very darkness they inhabited. "Look," Mia whispered, her breath hitching, a strange sense of both horror and compassion filling her eyes. "They're trapped, just like us." Mia's realization fractured something within Laura, igniting a desperate need for rescue, looking into the faces of those lost souls. "We can save them," she breathed. "Maybe we fight by freeing them." "No," Ethan protested, collapsing to his knees, shaking. "They'll just pull us in too." "Mia." Laura's voice was charged with urgency. "We need to work together, but we can't let fear cloud our hearts. We can save them and ourselves." With a wave of conviction, Mia stepped forward, filled with a fierce resolve. "Everybody listen." She cried into the swirling shadows as if she carried the weight of the world. You can still find peace. You can break free. The shadows writhed, resisting, then began to tremble as they were bombarded with memories. Echoes reverberated, creating a discord that fought against the melancholy. The darkness howled, and suddenly, with a terrifying howl that resonated through the house, the shadows twisted back, a cacophony of anguish mixed with something worse, a creeping dread that clawed at the edges of their sanity. No! You can't! The horrible voice screamed. You belong to us. Laura braced herself, feeling the pull more keenly, the collective wailing escalating around them. Fight it! Keep fighting! She screamed, feeling the icy rush clawing at her mind like skeletal hands grasping at her throat, and then, just like that, light poured unabashed across the room, and a blinding explosion erupted, scattering shadows further, yet drawing more from the world beyond their grasp. It surged, equal parts pain and elation, illuminating the ugly horror scattered all around. But what was this newfound strength? As confidence mixed with fear, their surroundings began to tremble violently, and a deep crack split across the floor, revealing an endless black pit, a chasm deep enough to cradle nightmares. The inevitable moment approached where choice would dictate fate. Mom! Ethan's cry shattered the air, his eyes wide with terror. Prepare to play for eternity. Would they leap into the abyss to rescue those trapped, or would they succumb to their own darkness? The shadows were still screaming, and a new, dreadful choice loomed over them. Laura hesitated, and in that moment of uncertainty, she felt the shadows weaving back in, stronger than before. You can't run from us forever, echoed that sinister voice from within the depths. What would they choose? What lay hidden in the chasm of shadows? Laura's heart thundered as she faced the gaping chasm, an abyss woven from fear and despair. The darkness called to her, its voice a dreadful serenade that promised safety in surrender. The shadows surged, preparing to snatch them into the depths. There was no backing down now. Stay together, she urged, resolute. She grabbed her children's hands, their warmth grounding her as they stood united against the encroaching terror. Mia's face flickered with determination, despite the shadows twisting her form. We can help them, she said, voice quivering but fierce, echoing with the spirit of every hero they'd ever imagined together. No, Mia. We need to get out of here. Ethan shouted, shaking his head vigorously, fear bright in his eyes. They were all terrified, but beneath it lay a seed of hope that began to sprout as Laura looked at them, her heart swelling with love. Listen to me, Laura said, squeezing their hands tightly. We need to take this chance, not just for us but for everyone trapped in this darkness. We can save them. The air pulsed with energy as her voice cut through the suffocating dread surrounding them. Gathering strength, she shifted her focus inward, tapping into every moment of joy, every bedtime story, every laughter shared behind closed doors. We can't let it win. Love is stronger, she declared, her voice rising with conviction. With Mia's insight lighting the way, she turned her thoughts to the faces of the tortured souls swirling around them within the shadows, lost hopes, unmade connections, aching to be freed. Everyone, join us, Mia cried, reaching out into the abyss as if to grasp the pain hovering near. The darkness hesitated, a ripple of uncertainty coursing through its form. You think you can save them? They are ours, it screamed, but the rage was laced with something unsteady. Laura felt the walls tremble again, the shadows falling back slightly, exposed and raw. They need us. She pressed on, her heart racing. We can give them light. Ethan clutched Mia's hand, a gentle counterbalance to their mounting fear. But we can't stay here, he protested, his voice raw. Then let us not just save ourselves. Let's challenge the darkness together, Laura urged, her voice fierce with conviction, igniting the tiny flicker of defiance. Bursting with newfound energy, she urged, they can't hold all of us. They can't take the light of our love. Mia nodded, determination swelling within her. We're stronger together. she echoed, her small voice ringing with the echo of countless heroes they had admired. Closing her eyes, she envisioned every game they played, the joy, the laughter, and love that filled their lives. Holding tight, they leaned together, a united front of light against the creeping darkness. With one harmonious breath, they shouted, "Your reign ends here." The shadows writhed, the cacophony of whispers merging into a wailing howl, as if 1,000 souls had awakened. Moments of doubt pressed against them like a weight, but they pushed through, growing stronger with every illicit memory surfacing beneath the surface, and as they shouted together, the basement erupted a brilliance so pure that it shattered the oppressive dark. The light soared toward the ceiling, clawing its way toward every shadow-clad corner, etching warm lines of hope into the air. Light struck against their hearts, invigorating their very souls, coursing through them like fire, pulling strength from the bonds forged through love and resilience. The shadows recoiled, wild fear etched upon their faces. Horror surged, fleeting as the light engulfed everything, the piercing brilliance dissolving the painful echoes of laughter that twisted in torment. With all her might, Laura forced herself to move toward the separation between light and shadow, breathing life into every ounce of courage. "We are not leaving anyone behind." She sprinted forward, yanking Ethan and Mia with her. Their combined resolve surged, wrapping around them like a protective cloak as they leapt into the vibrant light. Moments stretched like an eternity as the darkness dissolved. Swirling and screaming, but the light remained resolute, dissolving every scrap of malevolence in its wake. With a final blinding flash, they burst free, flickering back into an ordinary world that seemed mundane yet vibrant. The basement faded, the shadows, the whispers, all lost within the sweeping embrace of their love, evaporated into nothingness. Laura gasped as they landed on solid ground, the air warm against their skin, sunlight breaking through the dusty window. She looked around in disbelief. They were home, safe and sound. "Mom?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. Did we do it?" Mia, breathless and alive, turned her light-filled eyes to Laura. "We saved them, didn't we?" Laura knelt, gathering her children into her arms. This victory was theirs, forged through their love and determination. "We did," she confirmed, tears spilling down her cheeks. "We found our way back." In the coming moment, there was no laughter mingled with shadows, only sunlit smiles and the warmth of their bond. It wasn't just survival, it was victory over darkness. As they settled into their home again, a quiet echoed within her, a promise: whatever shadows life threw at them next, they would always face it together. Don't wait. You need to subscribe now for more thrilling stories like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this channel alive. We want to hear your reactions and theories about this ending, so flood the comments section below. And remember, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heart-pounding conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Let's stick together.